classic case was a family comprised of a mother, 2 daughters, and a son, who, according to the records now held by the board, supplied maize to various depots worth 745 million.
How one family made almost as much money in the maize scandal as was officially lost in the NYS Season 1 scam.
Also tonight, the attempted shooting of a former Garissa Finance CEC turns murky as the key suspect reportedly commits suicide in a police cell. NTV reveals more about a movie-like drama that surrounds the attempted murder and suicide.
Police arrest 3 students for killing teacher in Nyakach.
And a stark warning from the head of state.
We are determined to make it painfully unrewarding and expensive to get involved in corruption in Kenya.
Trade, security and war on graft dominate UK Prime Minister's visit to Kenya.
The trade links between the UK and Kenya are already strong, but we want to strengthen them further.
NTV Tonight with Mark Masai and Gladys Gashanja.
Thank you for joining us. Our sign language interpreter tonight is David Agondoa.
With our top story, we'll begin in Kisumu, where police are holding 2 secondary school boys and a university student suspected of hacking to death a secondary school teacher in Nyakach, Kisumu County.
The 3 are said to have attacked the teacher last night following a disagreement at a local pub. Oko Kusa with more.
It is inside this pub known as Heraremo where the disagreement between the slain teacher and the suspected killers is said to have started. That was last night at around 10 p.m.
Alapo kuna vijana walikuja hapo, vijana 3 kutoka Sondu na pikipiki, na wakaingia ndani, wakaanza kufanya nini? Wakaanza kukoroga watu hapo ndani. Alafu tukaita mwenye bar akakuja na akawatoa na wakaenda.
Johnson Lai is one of the people who accompanied the deceased, Manasseh Omaramu, to the bar. He says the young men later returned but were denied entry into the pub by the bar owner.
Vile walikuwa naenda, walikuwa wana point mwalimu. Kijana mmoja alisema, ati wewe unafundisha kwa shule ya mama yangu pia anafundisha. Sasa kuna kitu utaniambia.
Moments later, the teacher and his 2 companions left the pub using a motorbike. But as fate would have it, the bike broke down just a few meters away from the bar.
Kitambo tujarudisha chain, bado kwa process ya kurudisha hiyo chain, tukasikia tu mapanga ndio imeanza. Sasa huyu unapiga nduru huku, huyu unapiga huku na huyu unapiga huku. Mimi nikakimbia, nikaenda nikaanguka, nikapoteza tafahamu.
Johnson escaped with a deep panga cut on the right side of his head, while the second victim, Stephen Ongondo, was rushed to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital in critical condition. Manasseh, who hails from Tesu in the county of Busia, was a teacher at Gu Secondary School where he reported 3 days ago after the August holidays. 2 of his suspected killers are said to be Form 4 students at Ramba and Wangapala Secondary School, while the third one is alleged to be a student at Moi University in Eldoret. The trio is in police custody. Okokusa, NTV.
Back in Nairobi, police now say the main suspect in the shooting of former county executive for finance in Garissa County committed suicide inside his cell at the Parklands police station.
David Mwai was among 3 suspects, including Garissa Governor Ali Korane, arrested in connection to the attempted murder of the county executive after he attended prayers at a mosque in Kileleshwa.
Kevin Mutai has this development.
This CCTV footage recorded at a restaurant in Kileleshwa shows this man wearing a cap entering the restaurant at around 8:30 p.m. A few minutes later, he walks to the parking lot where Idris Mukhtar, the former county executive in charge of finance in Garissa County, had parked his vehicle and immediately opens fire. He shot at him 3 times. The lone gunman was a few minutes after the shooting, seen walking out of the gate and stopped. He disappeared into the dark night. The security guard is seen walking towards the gate after hearing the gunshots. A week later, detectives arrived at the scene of crime and examined the footage from the surveillance cameras and arrested 3 people: Garissa Governor Ali Korane, David Mwai, and another suspect who is yet to be identified. They were then subjected to thorough questioning at the regional police headquarters in Nairobi area, after which detectives forwarded their files to the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions for further directions. Mwai and his accomplice, in the meantime, remained in police custody. Mwai at the Parklands police station and his accomplice at Gigiri. Police at Parklands police station told NTV that Mwai committed suicide in his cell. They said he had, however, provided important information on the attempted murder. This vehicle is said to have been impounded by flying squad officers at a garage in Nairobi and is believed to have been the one trailing Idris. Police say the vehicle was being repainted using different colors and would later be sold. Mukhtar's family says that their kin is still fighting for his life in the intensive care unit with a bullet still lodged in his head. Kevin Mutai, NTV.
We turn our focus now to the fight on graft. An Agriculture Principal Secretary, Richard Lesiampe, has been released on a 3 million shillings cash bail.
The PS was charged in court alongside former Managing Director of the National Cereals and Produce Board, Newton Terer, and NCPB Finance Manager, Cornel Kiprotich, over the 5.6 billion shillings maize scandal.
The 3 are among 8 suspects arrested by Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission officials. 5 were arrested in Eldoret.
NTV Silas Apollo followed the event and filed this report.
The Director of Public Prosecutions, Nordin Haji, says that Dr. Lesiampe, Terer, the 3 and 13 others are to blame for the multi-billion shillings maize scandal. And barely 2 hours after an order to arrest the suspects had been given, detectives from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission pounced on them. At the Milimani Law Courts, the 3 were charged with a conspiracy to defraud the government funds, abuse of office, and willful failure to adhere to procurement laws. They pleaded not guilty.
Failed to adhere to provisions of Section 68(1)(a) of the Public Finance Management Act by incurring expenditure of Kenya shillings 5,604,165,000 towards the purchase of white maize under the Strategic Food Reserve Fund for the financial year 2017-2018.
The DPP and the EACC say that the accused had inflated the purchasing price of maize by over 5 billion shillings. EACC Deputy Chief Executive Officer Michael Mubea says Lesiampe and the 15 others paid out 11 billion shillings instead of the 6 billion shillings that had been budgeted for the maize.
The genuine farmers have not been paid, and that is a concern, or that was our concern as we undertook the investigations.
Mubea says that as of today, 8 suspects had been arrested, with another 5 arrested and detained at EACC offices in Eldoret. He said the commission was in pursuit of the remaining 8.
That evidence is reviewed afresh by the DPP independently, and we all arrived at the same conclusion. We believe we have a very good case.
The Eldoret offices were also a hive of activities as lawyers of the 5 sought to attend to their clients ahead of their appearances in court. In Nairobi, the prosecution asked the courts to allow its time to present the 5 before the court to take plea. Dr. Lesiampe is in trouble for irregularly reauthorizing the National Cereals and Produce Board, the custodian of the country's strategic grain reserve, to buy maize using an unauthorized budget. NCPB bought the maize on behalf of the Strategic Food Reserve Oversight Board for 2 years from October 16, 2016. Lesiampe and his co-accused were released on a 3 million shillings cash bail pending mention of their case.
Each who holds a passport, whether Kenyan or not, is required to deposit it in court. Secondly, to the extent that any of the accused persons does not hold a constitutional office, they shall only access their said offices from now henceforth, after having been charged, upon the written authority of their respective departments or agencies.
Dr. Lesiampe and his 2 co-accused are expected back in court in the next 3 weeks, with another batch of suspects set to take plea tomorrow. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Well, still on the maize matters, it has emerged that 4 members of one family were beneficiaries of 746 million of the 2.1 billion shillings irregularly paid out to traders by the National Cereals and Produce Board at the expense of legitimate farmers.
This is more than 12 times the amount the Ngiritas are accused of fraudulently receiving in what has come to be popularly known as NYS Season 2.
The revelations were made when the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission appeared before the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on the Maize Crisis.
NTV's Olive Burrows with more.
We established that suppliers who are not farmers were facilitated by an official to supply maize in large quantities using fake vetting forms. A classic case was a family comprised of a mother, 2 daughters, and a son, who, according to the records now held by the board, supplied maize to various depots worth 745 million using fake vetting forms.
This was one of the revelations made by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission when it appeared before the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on the Maize Crisis on Thursday. But by far the most startling, that a family of 4 were the sole beneficiaries of well over $500 million Kenya shillings of the nation's grain budget, and illegitimately so. These 4, whose identities we reveal to you tonight, were paid in record time for questionable deliveries, with thousands of legitimate earners yet to receive a single cent for their crop. They are Victoria Jebetru Teach, her 2 daughters Celestine Chepchirchir, Caroline Chepchumba, and a son whose identity has been withheld so as not to prejudice the case against him. Celestine alone is the single biggest beneficiary of the 2.1 billion irregularly paid to traders in the 2017-18 season, having received 294 of 385 million purportedly for delivering 219,236 50-kilo bags of white maize. Investigations have revealed that the family of 4 and the 16 other traders who profited to the tune of 2.1 billion shillings from the National Cereals and Produce Board colluded with chiefs and agricultural officers who compromised the vetting committees which facilitated the very same fraud they were established to guard against.
This is the process we are saying was infiltrated by traders and other people to the extent that some people delivered using fake forms.
The revelations were made on a day when several high-profile arrests were made in relation to the scandal, including that of the PS Agriculture Richard Lesiampe and former NCPB MD Newton Terrer. Several more arrests are expected in the coming days, with investigations focusing on transactions in Moi's Bridge, Ziwa, Kitale, Bungoma and Kisumu depots almost complete. The 6 depots prioritized in the investigation allegedly received maize worth over 8.7 billion shillings, which is about 73% of the total deliveries. The influx of maize from countries such as Uganda stands to cost the taxpayer a further 1.6 billion, with 500,000 bags of reserve maize in Kisumu turning yellow.
Some of the droughts that we get and the food shortages sometimes are not even actually true. We could not have lost food. I mean, everything from the cereals board is finished at a certain stage. When people are asked to bring food in the country, then all of a sudden those food reserves are full.
Whether it be ugali, boiled maize or roasted maize such as this, Kenyans can't seem to get enough of this precious commodity. But government agents agree that given recent events, more needs to be done to protect the Kenyan from having the food taken out of their mouths. Olive Burrows, NTV.
As you pick up your jaws from the floor, given the shock in those figures, there's more. Just days after Agriculture CS Mwangi Kiunjuri began a grand house cleaning on illicit dealings within the National Cereals and Produce Board, an internal report has exposed how unscrupulous traders are minting billions at the expense of legitimate farmers.
NTV's Zainab Ismail has details of a full list of those who received payment under dubious circumstances. Zainab?
Indeed, Mark and Gladys. Now, what we have here is a list of supposed farmers who benefited from the payout of about 2 billion shillings through irregular purchase of maize by the Kenya Cereals and Produce Board. Now, as you can see on this wall here, we have Celestine Chepchirchir, Let's have that on the wall. Celestine Chepchirchir, who allegedly supplied 219,236 bags of maize at the Eldoret depot, was paid 385.7 million. She's yet to be paid 91 million but has received 294 million shillings already. Stephen Kiprob, who supplied maize at the Kitale depot, was awarded payments amounting to 240.6 million. Caroline Chepchumba was paid 223.3 million, and Victoria Jabet allegedly received 94 million. Now, what you see here, this is very interesting. We see Caroline Chepchumba and Victoria Jabet. Now, in among, and according to the story that you've just seen by Olive Barrows, Victoria Jabet is the mother to Caroline Chepchumba and also the other person we've just mentioned. Now, this family have been able to receive more than 700 million shillings in that dubious payment of the maize at the NCPB. Very interesting. One person is missing in this list, the son, whose name has been withheld so far because of the case that is in court. It's going to prejudice the case. So we have a family of 3 members who have received more than 700 million shillings. Rodney Kimutai is said to have been paid 32 million for supplying maize to the Eldoret depot. Paul Kipiego is another farmer who received 89.7 million. Simon Kipkosgei was paid 80.9 million. And New Progressive FCS received 149.2 million for supplying 84,826 bags for the Eldoret depot. Alice Wanjiku, as you can see to the next definitely graphics here, we can see Alice Wanjiku received 89.6 million, Shem Mine receiving 66.7 million, Bernard Mwangi with a whopping 59.9 million, Julius Kipkemboy receiving 52 million, Zakaria Musheri, another farmer, was also paid 51.1 million. We also have a company, Oldonyo Nairasha Estate, which was paid 50.6 million shillings. John Tanui, another farmer, paid 49.3 million. David Nderitu receiving 44 million. Daniel Ngetich receiving 39.7 million shillings. Anthony Kipngetich here receiving 37.7 million. Joseph Coman paid 36.8 million. And Jacinta Nunga, who is said to have received 36.5 million for supplying 20,758 bags of maize to the Eldoret Kitale depot. Now, Eldoret, Moy's Bridge, Kitale, Nakuru, Bungoma and Kisumu are some of the NCPB depots that have been under investigation following complaints by farmers of a non-payment for produce delivered to the NCPB depots. Now, remember last week, NCPB Managing Director Newton Terer resigned. 5 top managers were also suspended and 59 other officials put under investigation in the purge. The developments today indicate the money trail has all in likelihood drawn unwanted attention to the suspects. Mark and Gladys.
Huge amounts there, and clearly the maize scandal will be going further than it has. This feels like just the beginning.
As we grind on those numbers and perhaps try to digest how unbelievable they are, let's get to another concern now in terms of running the judiciary arm in the country.
Tonight, we can authoritatively report that the judiciary faces an imminent crisis with the arrest, detention and ongoing prosecution of Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu.
That's right. The operations arm of the judiciary, the Judicial Service Commission, will likely be crippled if the DCJ takes plea in a case set for tomorrow morning.
5 commissioners are yet to be sworn in, and a quorum of 6 is needed for any business transacted by the commission to have the force of law.
Kemi Jungu now also reports that the besieged Deputy Chief Justice attended a crisis meeting convened today at the judiciary.
It was okay. Members of the Judicial Service Commission this morning held a closed-door meeting at the judiciary headquarters amid concerns that the judiciary is being targeted. All the sitting members were in attendance in spite of a case against the Deputy Chief Justice which threatens to undermine the progress made so far in injecting public confidence. At the meeting, the case was mentioned off the main agenda generally. The other issues included the renewal of the term of the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, Ann Amadi, which was to expire in October and has since been renewed for another 5 years.
They'll be pleased to have you.
The Commission also discussed matters relating to the swearing-in of the Court of Appeal nominee to the Judicial Service Commission. With this in mind, there are concerns that the agenda of the judiciary may stall. So far, the 11-member commission has been operating with only 6 commissioners. 5 are yet to be sworn in, including the Attorney General and the Court of Appeal nominee. The other Judicial Service Commission nominees are Felix Koskei, Patrick Gisoi and Olive Mugenda, whose swearing in was suspended by the High Court after they were appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. A lobby group went to court claiming there was no evidence to indicate that the nomination was subjected to openness, diversity, or fair competition. If the DCJ Philomena Mwilu loses the battle to stop the prosecution from compelling her to take plea on the charges, it will mean that the Judicial Service Commission has only 5 sitting members. This portends a crisis for the Judicial Service Commission, which must have a quorum to undertake business that has the backing of the law. Among the solutions that the Judicial Service Commission is looking at to avert a possible crisis is to swear in Justice Wasame, who declined to be vetted by the National Assembly's Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. The committee had put out an advert in the daily newspapers asking for members of the public to submit their memorandums on the judge, but in a written response signed by the Secretary to the Judicial Service Commission and the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, Anna Madi, the Judicial Service Commission said Wasame is an appointee of the Court of Appeal through a unanimous vote to represent them in the commission, hence cannot be subjected to vetting by any other agency. The other option will be to get one of the Supreme Court judges to take up the position of the DCJ as a representative to the Judicial Service Commission. This will then allow business of the commission to proceed without interruptions. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
In light of the latest arrest, President Uhuru Kenyatta says there is no turning back in the war on corruption and that it will only get more painful.
And in widening the dragnet, President Uhuru Kenyatta and British Prime Minister Theresa May have signed a pact to repatriate proceeds of corruption stashed in the UK.
This is a third such agreement after Switzerland and Jersey. NTV's political reporter Kennedy Morethi was at State House.
The war on corruption in the country has received a major boost, with the subject being part of the agenda items discussed between President Uhuru Kenyatta and British Prime Minister Theresa May's teams at State House. President Kenyatta said the war on graft was just gathering pace and it will only get worse as more people are targeted in the purge.
Depriving people, therefore, of the proceeds of their crimes is one major detriment against this vice, and we are determined to make it painfully unrewarding and expensive to get involved in corruption in Kenya.
To buttress this, President Uhuru insists fighting corruption will be part of his legacy alongside the Big Four.
Fighting corruption is an important aspect of my own legacy program, together with the unity of the country and the attainment of our Big Four centered around investment in housing, manufacturing, security, food security and universal health.
And in an effort to widen the net, President Kenyatta and Prime Minister May signed a pact to bring back proceeds of corruption stashed in the UK. Kenyatta has signed similar pacts with Switzerland and Jersey.
And it strengthens the ability of our two countries and our legal systems to be able to work together to ensure that any assets that may have been acquired in the United Kingdom that are associated with corruption or any other such crime are successfully returned and put to use for the benefit of the people of the Republic.
And I welcome the commitment you've made to drive this vice from your country. We stand with you in this fight.
Prime Minister May also lauded President Kenyatta's and ODM leader Raila Odinga's efforts to unify the country through their Building Bridges initiative, saying it spoke volumes of the country's democracy.
I also welcome, Mr. President, your commitment to political reconciliation in this country. The UK stands ready to support an inclusive Building Bridges process as you work to further strengthen your democracy and your institutions.
President Uhuru Kenyatta's fight against corruption has got a shot in the arm with that signing of a pact between Kenya and Britain. And probably this will renew his fight now that he says that fighting corruption will be one of his major legacies as he heads out in 2022. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV at State House, Nairobi.
And staying with our visit, Theresa May's visit to Kenya was the second in 30 years by a sitting British Prime Minister and comes in the wake of a UK separation from the European Union. While the UK is still one of Kenya's major investment partners, her political and economic influence has been seen to be in the wane. Now, May's visit hopes to rekindle relations between Kenya and her former colonial master. NTV's Leila Mohammed takes a look at the historical ties between these two countries and the East connection that threatens the strength of this alliance.
30 years ago, the Land Rover was an integral part of the Kenyan car culture. It was the official government car until 5 years ago. UK Prime Minister Theresa May, in her maiden official visit, faces a very changed country that bears the marks of an aggressive influence of the East. But the UK will be hoping that the traditional ties between the two countries still bind, even in the face of what happens to be the waning British influence in the country.
I've said we're committed to ensuring that Kenya will retain duty-free and quota-free access to UK markets as we leave the European Union.
Kenya firmly believes in the multilateral trading system. We are keen to seek friends across the world. We have always insisted that Kenya is open for business.
With over 300 British firms doing business in Kenya, the UK's grip on the Kenyan economy is still significant, but a number of them have faced a turbulent operating environment as power slowly slips away from the old establishment. China's aggressive march into the country has tilted the scales. In the last year, Kenya imported 30 billion shillings worth of goods from the UK, while she spent 390 billion shillings in imports from China, while only exporting a paltry 10 billion shillings worth of goods to the Far East nation.
Today, how the UK can work with you as you take forward your Big Four agenda to transform Kenya, aligning our expertise, our investment and our aid behind that vision.
The agenda that we have prioritized as a country, based on the Big Four: housing, healthcare, food security, manufacturing, all leaves itself open to opportunities for foreign companies to invest.
The UK has renewed its support for the region's security, having signed an agreement to fund AMISOM that is keeping the peace inside Somalia. For years, British soldiers have been training in the country in a long-standing military cooperation agreement. But this agreement expired in 2015, and the president was then still reluctant to extend their stay in the country. Prime Minister Theresa May is coming into the country at a time when British influence in terms of investment seems to be waning. But since Brexit is coming in 2019, she insists that the relations between Kenya and Britain will only get stronger, and the East will not be a deterrent in terms of them executing their mandate. Leila Mohammed, NTV, State House, Nairobi.
Back to full home affairs now. The chief executive officer of a private firm in charge of security at Moi Girls High School in Nairobi says there is doubt that the rape incident reported in May at the school actually took place. According to statements they received from the guards they had posted on duty that night, no stranger was seen within the vicinity of the school. The former principal of the school said she could not confirm whether the incident took place, as investigations into the matter were still ongoing. NTV's Sharon Baranga has this development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
For close to 2 hours, the Parliamentary Education Committee probed Lavington security firm together with their 6 guards who were on duty at the time a rape incident at Moi Girls High School in Kibera was reported.
The security lights were on throughout. Number 2, the accessibility to the dormitory cannot be gained by anybody from out.
Veronica Cherop and Celestine Nafula were deployed to patrol the dormitory section and at the same time monitor students' movement as well as provide security in that area. And they say they did not spot a stranger in the vicinity.
Nikauliza mara mbili, lakini sikupata jibu. Mtiso ndio alinishautia baadaye akasema, how come mtoto anaripiwa usiku na uwezi raise alarm? Hasa mimi pia nikashtuka kwa sababu ni news kwangu. Sikuona kitu yoyote yenye inaweza kuwa strange, ama sikuona watoto wakidhulumiwa ama kitu yoyote yenye inaweza senza kama danger. Neketi hapa kwa gate, unaweza ona mwenye anaingia Kililongo, Kenya, na helper.
Wewe kuona?
Sikuona chochote.
Mwanaume
hakuna,
ama mwalimu ama nani hukuona?
Hakuna mtu yote ni mwenye niliona akiingia pale ambaye anaweza kuwa strange.
According to what they have told us, and if you look at the general setup in the dormitories, we don't believe there was rape.
And around noon, it was the former principal's moment with the committee. According to her, there are 3 fences an intruder had to go through before accessing the dormitory section. And contrary to Lavington security, she cannot ascertain whether rape actually took place, as the matter is still being investigated.
Sir, with your permission, don't allow me to speculate, because this is a matter that is under investigation by the CID.
The principal took early retirement shortly after the rape incident was reported. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
Still a lot to pursue as investigations continue, and we will follow up on that. We take a break at this point.
And we shall be back with much more. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It is a heart-stopping and chilling video. Just how reckless the driver of a bus belonging to Kawere Sacco with the registration number KCL414C was. That's KCL414C. The bus christened Jakadala plies the Nairobi-Usenge route. Now, this dash cam that you're about to see, the video that shows a bus driver on the overtaking lane forcing oncoming vehicles to make way. The visibility was also significantly low due to the heavy fog.
The driver of this vehicle swerved to prevent smashing into the speeding bus, as did the bus driver who steered left to avoid a collision. But this reckless driving of a public service vehicle comes even as the country registers more deaths on the highways involving public service vehicles.
Very reckless. Now, the most recent case of a patient who died while waiting for space at the Kenyatta National Hospital's intensive care unit has once again brought to the fore the grim reality of a dire state of a country's healthcare. Across the country, there are just 106 ICU beds in all public hospitals, but only 42 of them can take care of patients whose lives are at risk. NTV's Harith Salim tells us more.
We pleaded with doctors wakituambianga ati hakuna space huko ICU, hakuna space, but they are trying. After 2 days wako na mamangu hata amki, hafanyi kitu yote, hakuna kitu inabadilika. Nikauliza kweli, what is emergency? Why can't they take care of my mom?
A statement of desperation set off by the loss of a loved one. In their pain, the family of Hanan Njoki blamed the Kenyatta National Hospital for the death of their kin. The hospital's statement in its defense was a bitter prescription for the family, but perhaps epitomizes the trouble in the country's health sector that is in desperate need of fresh medicine. In part, the statement said, unfortunately, there was no available ICU bed at Kenyatta National Hospital. But the picture at the country's largest referral hospital could well be a snapshot of the full image of the country's ailing health sector.
If you count the whole country, if you count what Kenyans are told, what politicians talk about, it's 106. If you look at the ones that are functional, that someone can be admitted and some life is saved, is 59. But if you want to look at the whole functional range, it's only 42.
A look at the number of ICU beds available in public facilities countrywide reveals a troubling situation. In some cases, patients have to travel to other counties to receive specialized care. In Migori, Siaya, Nyamira, Kisii and Trans Nzoia counties, for instance, there are no ICU beds in any of the public hospitals there. The situation is worse in Vihiga County. There are no intensive care services in any of the public or privately run hospitals, as there is no ICU bed in any of the public or privately run hospitals. Homa Bay County has 2 ICU beds, none of which are operational. Nyeri Level 5 Hospital has only 4 ICU beds. Nakuru has 8, while Kisumu has 6. Oluga, who practices at the Kenyatta National Hospital, says the situation is alarming. The capacity of the hospital to provide specialized care cannot meet the demand.
It's very bad. It means that we have 1 in a million chance. If you needed an ICU bed now, you have 1 in a million chance of getting it.
A number of patients who seek intensive care services at the Kenyatta National Hospital only get average care at best.
In every floor, we have at least 10 patients that need ICU. In every floor, those are admitted patients in every floor. So if you look at the 8 floors, that would be almost 80 patients every day who need ICU.
Oluga blames policymakers for getting their priorities wrong.
They say that Kenya needs 37 CT scans, okay? And they spend money on the 37 CT scans, yeah? But does Kenya need 37 CT scans? No.
He says that Kenyans need to agitate for better healthcare if the situation is to be remedied. Harith Salim, NTV.
Elsewhere, an 84-year-old man who vanished from his home in Kaiti, Makueni County without a trace 30 years ago has returned home.
David Malelu went missing in 1972 and his family had given up hope of ever finding him alive. Malelu is back home, alive and well.
There were celebrations in the sleepy village of Ganue in Kaiti constituency, Makueni County, after 84-year-old David Malelu, who disappeared over 30 years ago, resurfaced. Malelu's family had no idea of what had happened to him since he disappeared in 1972 while working in Mombasa. The family says they searched for him in hospitals, mortuaries and police stations, but there was no trace of him. Malelu had simply vanished.
Sasa mimi nilishindwa mtafuta wapi?
Kwa tumeamini kwamba ndugu yetu aliaga.
But on Tuesday afternoon, a frail old man walking with the help of a stick just showed up at their gate.
Kuja kwanza akasimama hapa, kwenda kumshika, alikuwa hawezi kutembea, tukamshika nikampeleka kwa nyumba.
Afya kidogo amedhoofika, lakini tutafanya juu chini regain energy kuanzia leo, na tutahakikisha tumempatia moral support, awe kiroho anasikia ako supported.
Malelu told his family he has been living and working in Tanzania as a casual laborer. Malelu seemed quiet and unbothered with all the attention he was getting.
Hapa nilikuwa nauliza kama mzee wangu hajakufa, si tungekaa na yeye hapa. Sasa kusikia amekuja, nimemshukuru Mungu.
Nara kujiona nikiwa nyumbani na ukuta familia yangu iko salama salimini.
As the family celebrates his return, the old man is perhaps trying to reflect on his past life and what awaits him in his new life. Rozongoi, NTV.
Hey Maleo, welcome back. And on that point, we take a break. Business News is up next with Dan Mwangi.
Good evening and welcome to NTV Business. I'm Dan Mwangi. Now, for the first time in history, the uptake of medical cover from private insurers has dropped, a scenario that has been attributed to the enhanced benefits of the National Hospital Insurance Fund, NHIF. While this is good news for the government-run scheme, it is a cause for panic or concern for the private enterprises. Alex Mwangi tells us why.
The performance of the medical class of business for insurance has come as a shock to many industry insiders. Gross written premiums, which had grown by 30.4% in 2016, had a decline in growth of 0.7% last year to 38.4 billion shillings from 38.7 billion shillings.
We didn't know until we prepared those numbers
We didn't know the impact that probably NHIF is likely to have in the market. Now that we know, we should start strategizing in terms of how we price our products, what kind of packages that we need to provide to our customers. So we'll react to it. We'll react to it, that I can assure you.
The National Hospital Insurance Fund has in the past few years enhanced its outpatient packages and is now covering consultation in low-end facilities, lab tests, drugs, ultrasound and imaging studies such as MRI and CT scans. The drop in medical underwriting, which accounts for a third of the general insurance business, is the lowest in 16 years. In 2017, the insurance industry's profit before tax declined by 18.6% to 12 billion shillings. This is despite the gross earned premiums for the industry having increased by 10.9% to 178.5 billion shillings during the same period.
The overall insurance penetration came down to 2.71 from 2.75 in 2016. I have no idea where it's going.
Life insurance currently contributes about 40% of the total premiums for the industry, but in mature markets, it contributes 80%. Premiums for the insurance industry as a whole grew by 6.5% in 2017 to 209 billion shillings from 197 billion shillings the previous year. There was marginal growth in the premiums of non-life insurance, with growth at 2.4% from 123.1 billion shillings to 126.1 billion shillings.
At 2.4% growth, that is the lowest growth that we have recorded since 2001, is actually worrying. This performance, which is probably one of the worst we have had in a long time, particularly so in general insurance, to me is a wake-up call for the underwriters.
Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Kenya's top trade officials today held a business meeting with UK Minister for Trade George Hollingbury in a move to expand UK's investment in the country. Hollingbury said the investors will be keen on the government's Big Four agenda, promising that the Kenya-UK trade relations will keep growing.
Top Kenyan trade officials led by Trade Principal Secretary Chris Kiptoo called on Britain investors led by UK Minister for Trade and Policy George Hollingbury to invest in Kenya's Big Four agenda. George Hollingbury noted that Kenya and Britain have a huge commercial engagement opportunity with focus on manufacturing, affordable housing, universal healthcare and food security.
Our future lies in trading widely across the world with all sorts of nations across the face of the globe, and Africa is a particularly important part of that.
With Brexit imminent, there have been concerns about what will happen to the trade agreements already in place, especially in regards to the Economic Partnership Agreement.
In terms of the direct relationship with Kenya, there are some challenges around the EPA, and those are being addressed. We are confident that before we leave the European Union, which may be in the 29th of March next year, as if there's no deal, but hopefully will be after an implementation period. In either case, we will be able to put ourselves in a position where Kenya should be able to enjoy the status it currently has with the European Union and the trading relationship it has with the European Union.
China being Kenya's key trading partner with heavy investments in infrastructure, the UK is looking to bring a slightly different investment.
Brings is perhaps a different sort of investment. Now, here in Kenya, we are the largest investor in Kenya as we stay here today. Huge numbers of British companies already invested in Kenya. We have a long and deep relationship with the country.
The meeting held at Strathmore Business School in Nairobi brought together 23 investors from Britain, spanning from the energy, financial technology and infrastructure sectors. Among the key British investment firms in the country include Talo Oil, Diageo Group, which owns Kenya Breweries Limited, and Unilever Kenya, and Azuri Technologies. Doreen Majala, NTV.
There has been a lot of debate about how sustainable Kenya's debt burden is, a matter that might be put to rest if the National Assembly passes into law a proposal to cap borrowing at 6 trillion shillings. Mgwen Member of Parliament Alexander Kosgei has drafted a bill that seeks to limit the country's appetite for debt and also compel the National Treasury to present a clear payment plan for each borrowing. Kenya currently has a debt to GDP ratio of 57%, the highest in the East African region.
Kenya's national debt presently stands at Kenya shillings 5 trillion, and this means that every Kenyan man, woman and child currently owes approximately 120,000 shillings, and this figure is rising. So every baby born today has a debt of 120,000 shillings. So having a clear debt ceiling is necessary. It is best practice that happens in other countries. In the United States, it is one of the checks and balances that is used by Congress to monitor the expenditure of the executive.
The Communications Authority of Kenya has acquired a new equipment that will allow it to better monitor the quality of services in the communication sector. The 400 million shillings worth quality of service monitoring systems QSMS has the capacity to test voice, data and SMS quality in at least 6 different locations simultaneously, ensuring delivery of quality services as per the set standards. Operators in the sector will now be required to submit raw data on their network performance to the regulator on hourly basis under the new network performance standards, which the regulator says failure to meet them will attract rather hefty penalties. In 2015-2016 financial year, Safaricom, Airtel and Telkom Kenya were fined a total of 311 million shillings for failing to meet the quality of service standards. I'm done, and so is business. Good night.
Thank you for staying with us. The Employment and Labour Relations Court has restrained Murang'a Governor Mwangi wa Iria from taking over management of a local water company.
The court also suspended replacement of Munga as chairman of Moasco by restraining the governor from implementing a gazette notice in which he appointed Professor Joseph Kimura as the new chairman.
Staff members of Murang'a Water and Sanitation Company have remained stranded here at the parking lot for 2 days. This gate that is the only access to the facility remained closed, while these lorries ferried sand and ballast to this farm to keep these workers away from their offices.
My prayer
is to the county government. They allow us to get vehicles and motorbikes, including allowing us to get access of these offices so that we can get the pipelages and blocking roads for the sewer attendants so that we can attend the people of Murang'a town.
Meanwhile, Murang'a Water and Sanitation Company Chairman Peter Munga maintains his position at the company after the High Court suspended his replacement and directed the governor to stop any interference with the firm's board of directors until the case is heard and determined. However, the governor is still determined to fight on.
The chairman has sat on that seat for close to 20 years. He's 80 years old. He resigned. He was removed from equity chair. Anakuja kukatalia kwa maji.
3 weeks ago, Governor wa Iria published a gazette notice replacing Munga as chairman of Muwasco, where he has served for 16 years. Achieng Wimbley, NTV.
Time for another short break on NTV. Tonight we'll be back with the sporting action.
Get an